The night was dark and quiet in the small town near the military spaceport. The air smelled of smoke and iron. Bright searchlights moved across the sky, watching for danger from above. Soldiers walked with heavy boots, their shadows long and sharp against the walls. A young boy named Aaron moved carefully through the alleys. He was only 10 years old, skinny and poor, but his eyes were sharp. His father worked in the repair yard, and his mother cleaned houses for the officers. Aaron did not belong inside the port, but curiosity was stronger than fear. He loved to watch the giant starships land and take off, glowing like mountains of fire. That night, however, he saw something strange. Near the edge of the port fence, where the lights did not shine, he noticed movement. A small figure was hiding behind broken crates. Aaron froze. His heart pounded. Soldiers said aliens were dangerous. They said aliens stole, lied, and killed. But this figure, it looked too small, too weak. He crept closer. The figure turned. For a moment, Aaron thought he saw a girl, about his age, maybe younger. Her skin was pale, almost silver under the moonlight. Her eyes glowed faintly, like stars trapped in glass. She was trembling, holding her stomach, her lips dry. She was not a soldier, not a threat. She was hungry. Aaron's breath caught in his throat. He wanted to run, but the girl's eyes stopped him. They were not angry. They were desperate. Slowly, Aaron reached into his pocket. Nothing. He had no food, no coin, only lint and an old screw he had been playing with. His stomach sank. He wanted to help, but he had nothing to give. Then he heard voices. 2 guards were laughing nearby. One of them dropped his bag of supplies on a bench. The smell of sweet sugar filled the air. Candy, rare, expensive candy that soldiers brought from the city. Aaron's mouth watered. He had not tasted candy in months, but he looked back at the girl. Her eyes begged without words. His hands shook as he made his choice. Aaron moved fast like a shadow. He slipped near the bench, grabbed one piece of candy, and ran back before the guards turned. His heart hammered in his chest, but somehow they did not see him. He knelt beside the girl. She watched him with wide, glowing eyes. He unwrapped the sweet slowly and placed it in her small hand. For a second, she did not move. Then, with trembling fingers, she lifted the candy to her lips. She tasted it, just a little bite, and her face softened. The glow in her eyes shimmered brighter. She looked at Aaron with something he had never seen before. Trust. They sat in silence. No words were spoken. The night around them was filled with the sound of boots, engines, and sirens. But in that small corner, 2 children, one human, one alien, shared a secret moment. Aaron smiled nervously. "Don't be scared," he whispered, even though he knew she could not understand his language. "You'll be okay." The girl tilted her head as if listening and then nodded slightly. She finished the candy slowly, like it was the most precious thing in the universe. Suddenly, a loud alarm rang across the port. The girl's body stiffened. Soldiers were shouting, lights flashing. They were searching for something or someone. The girl looked at Aaron one last time. Her glowing eyes were filled with both fear and promise. Then, without warning, she moved. Faster than any human, she climbed the fence and disappeared into the shadows beyond. Aaron stood frozen, breathing hard. The candy wrapper was still on the ground, shining under the searchlight. He picked it up and hid it in his pocket, as if to keep the memory alive. The soldiers stormed past him, searching, yelling orders, but they never saw the boy who had just broken the rules. They never saw the small alien girl who had escaped. That night, Aaron lay awake in his small bed. He kept thinking of her eyes, glowing like tiny stars in the dark. He wondered where she went. He wondered if she was safe. He wondered if he would ever see her again. He did not know it then, but that single piece of candy, given in secret, would change the future. It would shape the fate of 2 worlds, and 20 years later, she would return. 20 years passed like a slow river, carrying the memory of one night into the deep corners of time. Aaron grew older, taller, stronger, but inside he was still the boy who once shared candy with a stranger beneath the military port lights. Now, at 30 years old, Aaron worked as a mechanic on Earth. His hands were rough with grease and scars. He repaired old mining machines, patched cargo haulers, and fixed engines for people who could barely pay him. It was honest work, but lonely. Sometimes, when he wiped sweat from his forehead, he remembered that night. The glowing eyes of the little alien girl, the way she ate the candy slowly as if it was treasure, the way she vanished into the dark. He never told anyone. Who would believe him? People feared aliens. To them, aliens were enemies, not children. The world had changed in those 20 years. Humanity spread into space, building colonies on moons and stations around distant planets. But fear followed them. Alien empires existed far beyond, powerful and ancient. Stories came back of strange rulers, warlords, and councils of species no human had ever seen. Some said peace was possible. Most said war was coming. Aaron did not care about politics. His world was small, machines, sweat, and silence. He lived in a tiny apartment near the shipyard. He had no wife, no children. Just quiet evenings with the memory of glowing eyes haunting him. But one night everything changed. The ground shook with a deep vibration. Windows rattled and the sky above turned silver with light. People rushed out into the streets pointing upward. Aaron followed, his heart racing. Above Earth, enormous ships floated like shadows of mountains. They blocked the stars, their metal skins shining with alien symbols. The world held its breath. Was this war? Military alarms screamed. Fighters launched into the sky, but none dared to attack. The alien fleet was too vast, too powerful. Then a voice filled the air. It was not spoken through speakers or radios. It was inside every mind, a voice that was strong, clear, and heavy with command. People of Earth, it said, I am your queen, I come not for war, but for one. The crowd froze. People stared at each other in fear. A queen, an alien queen. What did she mean, for one? Aaron's knees went weak. His chest tightened. He didn't know why, but deep inside he felt the answer before it was spoken. Bring me the human who once gave kindness in the time of hunger. Bring me the boy who shared food beneath your soldiers' eyes. He is here, he must come, the voice faded. Silence fell over the city. Aaron's mind spun. Could it be? No, impossible. Yet the memory burned inside him clear as day. The little girl. The candy. Her glowing eyes. Could she have survived? Could she be the queen? He tried to hide, but soldiers were already moving through the streets, scanning faces, shouting orders. Neighbors pointed nervously, whispering his name. Soon armed men stood at his door. Aaron Hale, the officer barked. You've been called. By the queen herself. Aaron's hand shook as he wiped grease on his shirt. I don't understand, he said softly. I'm just a mechanic, the officer gave a cold smile. Not anymore. They dragged him to a shuttle where 100 eyes watched. Some were filled with envy, others with fear. He felt like a prisoner, though no chains held him. The shuttle lifted into the night sky, leaving Earth behind. Through the window, Aaron saw the alien fleet grow larger. The ships glowed with strange blue light, alive with energy. He felt small, like a child again. The shuttle docked with the largest ship, a fortress of silver and black. Soldiers guided him down wide halls, walls covered in symbols that pulsed like living veins. Every step echoed with tension. Finally, the doors opened to a throne room unlike anything he had imagined. High pillars rose into shadow. The air was heavy, filled with the hum of alien technology. And there, upon a throne of dark crystal, sat the queen. She was tall, elegant, her presence commanding. Her hair shimmered like threads of silver. Her armor gleamed with light. Around her stood alien guards, tall and sharp, watching him with cold suspicion. But Aaron saw only her eyes, glowing just as they had all those years ago. The queen leaned forward. For a moment, silence filled the hall. Then she spoke, her voice soft but carrying power. You, she said. I know you. Aaron swallowed hard. His voice was barely a whisper. You were the girl. Her eyes glimmered and a faint smile touched her lips. You gave me candy. You gave me hope when I had nothing, and now I have returned. The guards shifted uneasily. Whispers ran through the hall. Some looked angry, others fearful. Aaron stood frozen, his heart pounding. He had no idea what this meant. Was this salvation or disaster? The queen's gaze never left him. Earth shall live or die, because of you. The throne room was silent, yet the silence felt alive. The air was heavy, charged with power. Alien guards lined the walls, their armor shining like dark glass, their weapons humming softly. High above, crystal lights glowed, casting shadows that shifted like restless spirits. Aaron stood in the center of it all, feeling smaller than ever. He had repaired machines his whole life, but this was no machine he could fix. He was a single human, trembling before a queen who commanded whole fleets. The queen's eyes glowed faintly in the dim light. They were the same eyes from 20 years ago. Back then, they belonged to a hungry little girl hiding in the shadows. Now they belonged to a ruler, a woman who carried galaxies in her voice. "You are him," she said, her tone both soft and unshakable. "The boy who risked everything for me." Aaron's mouth went dry. He tried to speak, but his throat felt locked. I only gave you candy," he finally managed to whisper. Her lips curved into the smallest of smiles. "It was not candy to me. It was hope. It was life." The alien guard stirred, clearly displeased with her words. One of them stepped forward, his tall frame towering over Aaron. His voice was deep, rough like stone grinding against stone. "My queen," he growled. "This human is nothing. He is weak, untrained, unworthy of standing before you. He cannot be trusted," murmurs filled the hall. More guards nodded, some even sneered at Aaron. To them, he was not a savior. He was an insect. The queen raised her hand and the whispers died instantly. Her gaze never left Aaron. "He may appear small to you," she said, "but to me, he is the one who changed everything." Aaron felt heat rise in his chest. He didn't understand why she was defending him. He wasn't a hero. He wasn't special. He was just a boy who once broke the rules to help a stranger. But in her eyes, that moment had grown into something far larger. The queen rose from her throne. Her armor shimmered like liquid metal, and a ripple of unease passed through the guards. Slowly, she descended the steps, her every movement graceful yet heavy with command. When she stood before Aaron, she seemed taller than the pillars around her. She reached out her hand. "Kneel," she said. Aaron froze. The weight of the word pressed against his chest. Was this respect or submission? Would kneeling mean betraying his own people? Before he could move, another voice cut through the air. "No!" An older alien counselor stepped forward, his cloak dragging across the floor. His eyes were sharp, his tone sharp enough to cut steel. "This is madness, my queen. You risk everything for a human, a creature of war, a child of chaos. He should not be honored, he should be executed." The hall erupted with noise. Some shouted in agreement, others argued back. The guards gripped their weapons tighter, ready for violence. Aaron's stomach turned cold. He felt the walls closing in, the eyes of enemies piercing him like blades. He wanted to run, but there was nowhere to go. The queen raised her voice louder than the storm around her. "Enough!" The sound echoed, shaking the very walls. Silence followed. All eyes turned to her. She looked at Aaron again, her expression unreadable. "You gave me mercy when your world would have given me death. You risked punishment for a stranger. You were a child, yet you acted with more honor than men twice your age. Tell me, Aaron Hale." She leaned closer, her glowing eyes searching his face. "Will you stand with me now?" The question struck him like lightning. He could barely breathe. Stand with her? What did that mean? To lead? To fight? To betray his own world? Before he could answer, the older counselor stepped forward again, fury in his voice. "This is a trick. Humans cannot be trusted. If you keep him alive, he will be the weapon our enemies use against us." The queen turned sharply. "And if I kill him, I betray myself." The counselor snarled, his eyes narrowing. "Then let us put him to the test." The hall grew tense. The words carried weight, more than Aaron understood. He looked between the queen and the counselor, his heart pounding. "What test?" Aaron asked, his voice shaking. The counselor's grin was cold. "A trial. If he is as pure as you believe, let him prove it. If not, we will see his true weakness." The queen's jaw tightened. She looked at Aaron, her face unreadable. Then, after a long silence, she spoke. "Very well. A test it shall be." Aaron felt his blood run cold. He had no weapons, no knowledge of their world, no idea what this test would be. But he knew one thing. Whatever was coming, it would decide not only his fate, but the fate of Earth. The queen turned back to him, her eyes softer for only a moment. "Do not fear," she whispered, her voice low enough that only he could hear. "You are stronger than you know." The guards moved in, gripping his arms, leading him away. The throne room faded behind him, filled with angry whispers and cold stares. Aaron's heart pounded as the heavy doors closed. He had stepped into a world of shadows, power, and danger, and soon he would be tested. The chamber doors closed with a heavy clang, leaving Aaron in darkness. His arms were free now, but guards flanked him on both sides, their glowing weapons humming like caged thunder. He tried to keep his breathing steady, but his chest felt tight. He was led down a long corridor. Strange symbols pulsed along the walls like veins of light, alive and shifting. The deeper they went, the colder the air became. The silence pressed against Aaron's ears until he felt he might burst. Finally, the guards pushed him into a wide circular hall. It was dim, lit only by fire-like crystals set into the floor. Alien counselors sat high above in carved seats, their faces hidden in shadow. The Queen was there too, standing apart from them, her silver hair catching the faint light. Her expression was unreadable. The older counselor, the one who had demanded Aaron's test, stepped forward. His voice echoed in the chamber, low and cruel. "This is no place for speeches, human. You stand accused of weakness. Tonight you prove your worth or you die." Aaron's heart pounded. He wanted to argue, to shout that he was just a mechanic, not a warrior. But his words would mean nothing here. The counselor gestured, and from the shadows a strange beast emerged. It was tall and lean, its body covered in dark scales that shimmered like wet stone. Its eyes glowed red and its teeth were long and sharp. A low growl rumbled from its throat as it circled Aaron. The guard shoved Aaron forward, leaving him alone in the center. "This creature is a hunter," the counselor said, "born to kill. If you survive against it, perhaps you are not as weak as we think. If you fall, then you prove what I already know, that humans are nothing but fragile animals." Aaron's legs felt weak. He had no weapon, no training. Only his hands scarred from years of fixing machines. He swallowed hard, forcing his voice to rise. "This isn't fair," he said. "I'm no soldier," the counselor sneered. "Then die quickly." The beast lunged. Aaron dove to the side, barely avoiding the snapping jaws. He rolled across the floor, his palms scraping against the rough stone. His mind screamed at him to run, but there was nowhere to go. The beast turned, hissing, its claws clicking against the ground. Aaron's eyes darted around the arena. No weapons. Nothing but stone and fire crystals. His chest heaved, but then a thought struck him. He had survived his whole life by thinking, by fixing what was broken. He was not a warrior, but maybe he didn't need to be. As the beast charged again, Aaron grabbed one of the glowing crystals from the floor. The heat burned his hand, but he held on. At the last second, he shoved the crystal into the beast's open mouth. The creature shrieked, stumbling back. Smoke poured from its jaws as it thrashed in pain. Aaron dropped the crystal, his hand blistered, but he was still alive. The counselors whispered above, surprised. The Queen's eyes flickered with something unreadable. Pride, perhaps, or fear. But the beast was not finished. It recovered, roaring with fury. It circled Aaron again, slower this time, cautious. Blood dripped from its mouth, hissing as it hit the floor. Aaron's chest tightened. He knew he couldn't win in strength. But he remembered something his father once told him while fixing a broken engine. Every machine, every creature has a weakness. Find it and you survive. He studied the beast. Its movements, its breaths, the way it leaned heavier on one leg. And then he saw it. The scar along its left shoulder where the scales were thinner. The creature lunged again. This time Aaron didn't run. He grabbed a broken shard of crystal from the floor, jagged and sharp, and at the last second, he dove toward the scar. The shard sank deep. The beast let out a scream that shook the chamber. It staggered, thrashing before collapsing into silence. Aaron dropped the shard, his chest heaving, sweat pouring down his face. His hands trembled, his skin burned, but he was alive. For a long moment, the chamber was silent. Then whispers filled the air, louder this time, restless. He survived. He used cunning, not strength. Perhaps the Queen is right. The older counselor's face twisted with rage. This proves nothing. Trickery is not strength. He should still be executed. The Queen stepped forward. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command. It proves everything. He fought not with muscle, but with mind. He showed courage in the face of death. And that counselor is strength. Aaron's knees nearly gave out. He wanted to collapse, but he forced himself to stand tall. He would not give them the satisfaction of seeing weakness. The Queen turned her gaze to him. Your trial is not over. There are other tests. Tests of loyalty, of heart. Tonight you have faced death. Tomorrow you will face choice. Aaron's stomach turned. Choice? What kind of test was that? The counselors muttered among themselves. Some looked convinced, others furious. The older counselor's eyes burned with hate, but he said nothing more. Guards escorted Aaron from the chamber. As the doors closed behind him, the Queen's voice echoed in his mind, soft and private. Do not fear, Aaron Hale. I remember your kindness. I will not forget it now. But in the shadows, unseen by all, another figure watched with cold eyes. A rival counselor, hidden in the dark, whispered to himself, he will not survive the next trial. And if he does, Then he will die by my hand. The corridors of the alien flagship felt colder after the trial. Aaron walked between two guards, his blistered hand wrapped in a strip of cloth. Every step echoed against walls that seemed alive with strange veins of light. His body ached, but his mind was restless. He had survived the beast, but at what cost? He was still a prisoner, still a pawn in a game he did not understand. They led him to a small chamber, a bare room with no bed, no windows, only a single glowing panel on the wall. The door sealed shut behind him with a hiss. Aaron sat on the floor, exhausted. He thought of Earth, his quiet apartment, his workshop, the life he once had. That life felt like a dream now. Hours passed, maybe more. Time was hard to measure here. Finally, the door opened. A hooded figure stepped inside, moving quickly. Silently, Aaron tensed, ready for another test, but the figure raised a hand. Quiet, the voice whispered. It was low, urgent, and carried no cruelty. I am not your enemy. The hood fell back, revealing a young alien woman with pale skin and silver markings across her face. She was not a guard, not a counselor. Her eyes darted nervously toward the hall before she knelt beside him. You are in danger, she said. The council wants you dead. Tonight they will try again. Aaron's stomach tightened. Why tell me this? Because not all of us agree, she answered quickly. The Queen. She believes in you, but others believe she is blinded by her past. They plan to kill you, and when you are gone, they will use your death to weaken her rule. Her words sank deep. Aaron thought of the Queen, of her glowing eyes that still carried a trace of the hungry child he once saved. She had defended him, but if she lost power because of him, what then? The woman leaned closer. Listen, there is a meeting tonight deep within the council chambers. They plan more than your death. They plan to strike the Queen herself. If she falls, Earth will burn with her. Aaron's breath caught. His first instinct was disbelief, but something in her eyes told him the truth. She was risking her life just to warn him. Why me? Aaron asked. Why tell me, a human? Her expression softened, almost sad. Because sometimes the smallest voice carries the greatest weight. And because she trusted you long before any of us. Before Aaron could reply, the door hissed again. She pulled her hood back up and slipped out, vanishing like a ghost. The guards returned a moment later, their faces unreadable. That night, Aaron was brought not to his cell, but to a balcony overlooking the heart of the alien fleet. Ships stretched in every direction, silver and black, glowing with blue light. Below, cities of crystal floated inside the great vessel like stars trapped in glass. It was breathtaking and terrifying. Behind him, two counselors spoke in low voices, unaware he could hear. The Queen is weak, one hissed. Her attachment to the human clouds her judgment. Then we act tonight, the other replied. When the trial ends, she dies, and the human dies with her. Aaron's fists clenched. They weren't hiding their intentions. They wanted her gone, and they wanted him as the excuse. Later, in the dining hall, Aaron sat under heavy watch. He barely touched the strange food placed before him. The Queen entered briefly, her presence commanding silence. For a moment, their eyes met across the room. He wanted to warn her, but the guard's eyes burned into him. He could say nothing. That night, lying on the cold floor of his chamber, Aaron made his choice. He could stay silent, save himself, and hope Earth would be spared, or he could risk everything to protect her. The memory of her younger self returned to him, frightened, starving, yet trusting him. He could not betray that trust. When the guards finally fell into routine, Aaron acted. Using the strip of metal he had hidden from the trial chamber, he pried open a small panel in the wall. Behind it, glowing wires pulsed. He tugged one loose, creating a brief flicker in the power. The door slid open just a crack. Just enough. Aaron slipped out. The corridors were quiet, but the hum of voices led him downward toward the council chamber. He moved carefully, hugging the walls, his heart racing. The hooded woman's warning echoed in his mind. At the chamber door, he paused. Voices echoed from inside. The Queen is blind. Tomorrow we announce her weakness, and by nightfall she will be no more. And the human? Executed at dawn. A symbol of her failure. Aaron's blood ran cold. They weren't just plotting. They were ready. He leaned closer, but the door hissed open. Hands grabbed him, dragging him inside. Counselors stared down in fury. Well, one sneered. The rat walks into the trap. The older counselor stepped forward, his grin sharp as a blade. Perfect. Now we don't need to frame you. We caught you spying. Aaron struggled, but the guards held him fast. He shouted, desperate, "They're planning to kill her! They want to murder your queen." The words echoed, but the counselors only laughed, and then the doors at the far end opened. The queen entered, her eyes blazing. She looked from Aaron to the counselors, reading the tension in the air. The older counselor's smile faded. Aaron shouted again, his voice breaking with urgency. "They're betraying you. They want you dead." The queen's eyes narrowed. The chamber grew silent. The council chamber was a storm of voices. Shouts echoed from every corner as guards dragged Aaron to the center of the floor. His arms were bound, his face pale but defiant. The queen stood at the far end of the hall, her eyes like burning stars, while the older counselor raised his hands high, calling for silence. "This human is a traitor," the counselor thundered. "He spies, he sneaks, he poisons our queen's mind with lies. He must be executed, and swiftly, before his corruption spreads." The crowd of counselors roared in agreement. Many pointed at Aaron, some spitting words of hate. The guards tightened their grip on him. Aaron's chest heaved, but he forced himself to stand tall. His voice was hoarse, but he shouted above the noise, "I am not your enemy." The words cut through the chamber. The queen's gaze flickered, unreadable. The older counselor sneered. "Then prove it. What use is a fragile human to us? What can your kind possibly offer but chaos and war?" The room quieted, waiting. This was his moment. His chance to live or die. Aaron drew in a breath. His throat ached, but his voice rose steady and clear. 20 years ago, I was just a boy, poor, hungry, invisible to my own people. I saw a child lost and starving. She was not human, but she was hungry. She was afraid. And in that moment, I did not see an alien. I saw someone like me, someone who needed kindness. So I gave her what little I had. His bound hands trembled as he spoke, but his eyes burned with conviction. "That is who we are," he continued. "Humans may be weak in body. We may fight, we may stumble, we may fall, but we are also capable of mercy when no one is watching, of risking everything for someone we do not understand, of giving even when we have nothing." The chamber stirred. Whispers ran through the counselors. The guards looked uneasy. Aaron's voice grew louder, carrying across the hall. "You call me fragile. You call me weak. But strength is not claws and teeth. Strength is not killing to prove power. Strength is choosing compassion when fear tells you to walk away." He turned his eyes toward the queen. For a moment, the crowded chamber vanished. It was only him and her, the boy and the girl, the candy and the stars. "You remember?" Aaron said softly, though the whole hall heard him. "You remember that night? I did not save a queen. I did not save a future ruler. I saved a hungry child. And now all I ask is that you remember what that meant." The queen's lips parted, her expression unreadable. The counselors murmured louder, some shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The older counselor slammed his staff against the floor. "Do not be fooled," he snarled. "He speaks pretty words, but he is human. His people bring war, not peace. If you let him live, you doom us all." Aaron faced him directly, his voice sharp as steel. "No, what dooms you is fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of change. You call me weak, but it is you who tremble at the thought of mercy." Gasps echoed through the chamber. The guards tightened their grips again, waiting for orders. But the queen raised her hand, and silence fell instantly. She stepped forward, her gaze sweeping across the council. Her voice was calm, but it carried the weight of command. 20 years ago, I was a lost child, alone, starving, hunted, and a boy, this boy, risked punishment to share what little he had. That act shaped me. It reminded me that kindness can exist even where fear rules. Without it, I would not be standing here as your queen. She turned to Aaron, her glowing eyes softening. And now he stands before us again, bound accused yet unbroken. He speaks truth even as death breathes on his neck. The chamber grew tense. The queen lifted her chin. If this council cannot see strength in that, then perhaps it is not him who should be judged, but us. Her words struck like thunder. Several counselors looked shaken, some even ashamed. But the older counselor's eyes blazed with fury. "This is treason," he shouted. "You would throw away our safety for a human speech? Then you are unfit to rule." He lunged forward, pulling a hidden blade from his cloak. Gasps filled the hall as he charged straight for the queen. Aaron's body moved before his mind could think. He wrenched free from the guards, throwing himself between the counselor and the queen. The blade slashed across his arm, blood spilling, but he held firm, forcing the attacker back with the weight of his body. Guards swarmed, weapons raised. The counselor fought like a cornered beast, but numbers overwhelmed him. They dragged him down, snarling, his blade clattering against the floor. Aaron staggered, clutching his bleeding arm. The queen caught him before he fell, her hand gripping his shoulder tightly. "You fool," she whispered, though her voice trembled. "You would die for me?" Aaron winced, but he smiled faintly. "I didn't die for a queen. I saved a friend." The queen's eyes shimmered, glowing brighter than before. She looked out over the chamber where silence had fallen. "This trial is over," she declared. "The human has spoken and he has acted. He is no traitor. He is proof of what strength truly means." But in the shadows beyond the queen's voice, Aaron felt the weight of unseen eyes still watching him. Hatred did not die so easily. The game was not over. The chamber was frozen in silence. The older counselor lay bound on the floor, spitting curses while guards pressed their weapons against him. Blood dripped from Aaron's wounded arm, but he stood tall beside the queen. His breath was heavy, his body weak, yet his eyes held fire. The queen's voice rang out across the hall. "This man saved me as a child. Tonight he saved me again. You call him weak. You call him fragile. But I tell you now, he is stronger than all of you combined." Whispers ran through the chamber. Some counselors bowed their heads in shame. Others stared in anger. The queen raised her hand, silencing them all. "Our future cannot be built on fear," she declared. "If we destroy every hand that offers kindness, we destroy ourselves. If we kill those who show mercy, we choose chains over freedom." She turned to Aaron, her glowing eyes softening. "You once gave me hope when I had none. Today you give hope again, not just to me, but to all who listen." The chamber stirred. Some aliens nodded slowly, as if seeing Aaron for the first time. Others scowled, their fear turning to hate. The bound counselor laughed bitterly. "You are a fool," he spat. "If you ally with this human, you doom us. Humans spread like fire. They burn all they touch. You will regret this choice, Queen." Aaron met the counselor's eyes. His voice was calm, steady. "Fire can destroy, but it can also give warmth. It depends on how you use it." The queen studied him for a long moment, then rose to her full height. Her silver hair shimmered under the crystal lights, her presence commanding silence. "I will make my choice," she said. The guards shifted uneasily. The counselors leaned forward. Aaron held his breath. "I choose peace," the queen declared. Her voice was strong, final. "I choose to honor the human spirit that once saved me, and that has saved me again tonight. I choose alliance with Earth." The chamber erupted. Some counselors cheered, others shouted in rage. The guards dragged the older counselor away, his voice still spitting venom. "You will regret this. You will all regret this." But his words faded as the doors closed, leaving only the queen, Aaron, and the stunned assembly. She turned back to Aaron, placing her hand gently on his wounded arm. Her voice softened low enough for only him to hear. "Do you see, Aaron Hale? Your small act of kindness shaped my path. It shaped this moment. What seemed nothing to you became everything to me, and now it may change the fate of two worlds." Aaron's throat tightened. He wanted to answer, but words failed him. His body ached, his vision blurred. He had done all he could, but he felt like a candle burning low. The queen called for healers. Alien hands pressed glowing crystals against his wound, sealing the cut with warmth. Slowly, the pain faded. When Aaron opened his eyes again, he was aboard a shuttle. Outside the window, Earth grew larger, blue and green against the stars. The queen sat across from him, her gaze fixed on the planet below. "They fear me," she said quietly. "Your people will see an invader, not an ally. But you can speak for me. You can tell them what I cannot." Aaron swallowed hard. "They'll listen to me?" "They must," she replied. "Because I am not coming to them as a conqueror. I am coming as the child you once saved, now returned as queen. And they will believe it, if you stand beside me." The shuttle descended through Earth's atmosphere. Cities glittered below, filled with fear and wonder at the sight of alien ships overhead. Military forces waited on the ground, weapons ready. The queen rose, tall and unshaken, as the doors opened. Sunlight spilled into the cabin. Soldiers raised their weapons but froze when they saw Aaron step out first, standing beside her. He raised his voice so all could hear. "This is not an enemy," Aaron shouted. "This is not a conqueror. This is someone who came for peace, not war. I know because I met her long ago when she was only a child. She could have died that night, but she lived because I chose kindness. And now, she stands here offering that same kindness to us," the crowd murmured. The soldiers hesitated. The queen stepped forward, her voice strong but gentle. I am not here to destroy, she said. I am here to honor the one who saved me and to honor his people. Let us build peace, not war. Slowly, the weapons lowered. Fear turned to silence, silence turned to awe, and for the first time in decades, Earth looked upon an alien ruler not with terror, but with possibility. Aaron's chest rose and fell. He could hardly believe it. A single piece of candy given long ago had grown into this moment. The Queen turned to him, her voice soft enough that only he could hear. That night, you saved a girl. Today you saved 2 worlds. Never forget the power of small kindness, Aaron Hale. For sometimes, it is the smallest spark that lights the stars. And as the sun rose higher over Earth, humanity's story changed forever. Because one boy had once chosen compassion over fear.